All right, so I'm going to take you through a couple tutorials just so you get familiar with a few of the tools that you're going to be using a lot. So first step, let's get to SketchUp. So you're going to follow the link, go to SketchUp, make sure you log in with your Google account. It might take a little bit. Sign in with Google. What the Google account and the access gives you is you can see my files. These files would then be saved to your Google Drive because if you haven't already, made a Google Drive folder. So that will help you when you're trying to save these files. But what I just did is I just went to back to SketchUp. So I'm back to a new file. So before we start, I'm just going to take you through how to save it. So I'm going to do, let's say, introduction. This is just a tutorial. This is nothing that you need to save. This is just to take you through practicing. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to ask me what folder I want to save. I'm going to do a SketchUp cat folder. I'm going to hit select. Now, the name should pop up right there. If it doesn't, if it still says untitled, that means you need to save it and something can go right. So you see a figure. This figure is going to be popped up every time you open a new model in SketchUp. So this figure name is Temple, and Temple's job is to give us a sense of the size of the object we draw. So for example, Temple is standing at 5 feet 9 inches. So if we draw a 3-foot cube, which I'm going to take you through, that cube in shape should be about half her size. So it's just a good reference point. If at any point you're designing something and you don't want that reference point, you can just click. And I usually right click and hit erase, but there's also, if you look around, there's this erase tool right here that you can use. I'm just going to keep Temple there just for a good reference to height. So we're going to test it. We're going to draw, I'm going to try to make a cube. So you're going to go, again, there's that erase button, paint button, align button. You're going to find the rectangle. So there's a rectangle shape. So you can make a rectangle into a square or a cube. There's a circle too. You're going to want to use the rectangle because we're going to keep that square rectangle feature. You're going to want to click once. If I click once, I can move the rectangle to make all sorts of sizes, and I see in the right screen the dimension bottom right, and my dimensions go up and down with however way I move it. If I type in without clicking again, if I type 3 and 3, make sure it's 3 feet, 3 feet, and hit enter, it'll make it for me. Again, if I don't like it, I can hit erase, or I can hit the select, and I can hit erase. And I might just have to erase, let's do the erase function, every rectangle piece. And then I go start again. I'm going to go find the rectangle bar, the rectangle, click one time, and then I can move it. Instead of like getting really close to 3 feet by 3 feet, I'm just going to type it into my keyboard. 3 feet, 3 feet, and you can see it showing up in dimensions. I'm going to hit enter. And it'll pop up. Again, if I don't like it, we're going to try that again. Go to my rectangle. I want to make my rectangle 4 feet by 5 feet. 4 feet. Enter. There you go. Alright, so that is one tool that we're going to use quite often. We're also going to be using the circle tool as well. And the circle tool is kind of the same way. So you're going to put a dot, and then you can make it as big or as small as you want. And it fills in. Next, you're going to use the push-pull tool, which is below. So it's this top one, and then again, if you hover your hand or arrow over it, it'll come up push pull. So I'm going to click on it. That's going to make, and you can see the red arrow that pointing up, it's going to make our shapes 3D. So you want to highlight the top of it, and you can pull up. Again, if I want to make it, let's say 3 feet, I'm going to hit enter, come up in my distance, and there you go. Again, you can see in reference to temple, which is about 5 feet 9 inches, it comes up to about half the height, which is good. Now, you're going to say, what about that circle behind it? How can you get to it? You're going to use what we call the orbit tool. This orbit tool, if you highlight the bottom of the column right there, it says orbit. You can move your screen so you can get to the other side. Top, bottom, you can see any vantage point that you want. So let's say I want to make that circle 3D as well. I'm going to hit the push pull button. I'm going to hover the top. You can see how the top changes color. I'm going to increase it. Now I can push pull too, or I can type in a distance and hit enter, and it'll go to that desired distance. So those are a couple of, again, if I didn't like that vantage point, I can go to orbit and move. So those are a couple of the different tools that you'll be using. Here's another tool. Let's go to pan. If you go to orbit, click, you can do pan, and pan's another tool. This tool allows you to move the model across the screen. If I click on the pan tool, and then I left click and I drag, it just moves side to side. If you have a mouse and you want a shortcut, you just hold down the scroll wheel and then hold down the shift key at the same time, and that'll move your mouse and allow you to pan in any direction. Again, you can see how it shifts just left to right, up to down. It doesn't change the view though. I have that side in my viewpoint. Again, if you want to orbit to look at the back, you can orbit and change your viewpoint. I personally use orbit a lot. Pan comes in handy as well too. And then if you look, you can have the zoom technology. This zoom tool allows you to take a closer look at details in your model. So when we get to the little details, it might be handy just to zoom. And you left click and drag out. If I drag in, left click, zoom in. So again, just play around with it, and that's the left click, and I'm just holding my left click. If you have a mouse and a shortcut, is you just zoom in with the scroll wheel. Then the last thing I want to bring you to is the instruction panel. So if anytime I do not know of any of these, let's say line, if I don't know any of how to work these, I can go to the instruction panel, which is kind of like this cap with a cap and down, and I'm going to hit it, and then it's going to tell me how to operate it and what it does. So that's the line tool, which is pretty cool. And then it gives me modifier keys to use if I don't have a mouse. So again, let's say, hey, I don't know what this is. So I'm going to go to the instructor tool, and it'll tell me what it is and how I can use it. So that's really cool to use as well. So just play around with this a little bit until you get to tutorial 1, and let's see how you do.